So without further ado, a couple opening remarks. So I want, especially after our trial run last week and how things went, I want to emphasize right up front, LinkedIn is a huge topic. We could talk for 2 days about this thing. So there's no way that I'll possibly be able to answer all your questions or tell you everything there is to know about the site. So I have this carefully curated set of material. I think for the vast majority of people, they'll find it useful. And tonight, since we talked utterly about profiles last time, tonight's going to be all about proactive networking with the site, how to reach out, find people, connect with them, ask for favors, that kind of thing. So that's sort of the sole focus for tonight, okay? I do sort of assume that most, if not all, everyone on this call has some familiarity with LinkedIn. I mean, you certainly can be a barrel new to the site, but if someone isn't even on LinkedIn or have an account, of course, there's kind of a layer of signing up for the site and getting on there that we won't go into. It's not terribly hard, but I'm sort of teaching this at the level of maybe a 2 out of 10 or beyond, something like that. As PU kindly said, a recording of this will be made available. So I do have a lot of information in these slides that I sort of painstakingly typed out, because one of my things as a trainer, right or wrong, is some of this stuff gets pretty complicated, the sequences. And if you're not used to it, to have a nice written step-by-step directions is going to be helpful. So I'm hoping the slides and the recording are going to serve that purpose, even if I touch on some slides fairly quickly tonight. As you're already doing so wonderfully, feel free to submit questions in the Q&A box. I tried my hardest last time. We still couldn't get through all the great questions that came in, but I'll do my best to kind of surf that Q&A box, and we'll have somewhere like 20 to 30 minutes at the end while I'll try to address any final questions. And lastly, I mean, LinkedIn doesn't have the best help menu in the world, and that's part of why I'm teaching this class, but they do have a lot of details in the help menu. So, if I leave you hanging or you're trying to remember how to do something and you even know what it's called or can put some words to it, generally, if you go into the LinkedIn help menu, I think most of you could find this pretty easily, but it's up in the Me tab of LinkedIn down under help. You can find a lot of articles that will tell you or remind you of a lot of things I'm going to show you. So don't hesitate to use that resource as well. Okay. All right. Okay. So diving in, first thing I want to get everyone on the same page is, why is LinkedIn, in my opinion, so much more valuable than all these other sites that have been created for career networking, things like that? Well, there's 3 main reasons. For starters, it was designed for professional networking, business networking, not casual social stuff. So most of the rules of privacy and how people interact are much more suited to business people than like Facebook or something, where people are sharing baby pictures and lunch they had. So there's an awful lot of big hitters, executives, professionals on LinkedIn who you wouldn't be able to find on other sites, Facebook, Twitter, things like that. I'm actually one of them. So when it comes to business networking, I think the fact that LinkedIn was designed for this purpose just makes it more effective than most other sites that really went after the friends chatting with friends crowd. Okay, to date, they've attracted over 600 million users. So that's, it's not Facebook numbers, but that's a lot of people all over the globe. Almost any kind of person you could name is going to be on there. But the most important thing, the linchpin to tonight's training, and I'm guessing most of you might know this, but I just couldn't afford to skip it. The whole premise of LinkedIn, the whole foundation is based on this concept of 6 degrees of separation, which is a fairly old social science concept. People joke about the other version of it called 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, the actor. You've probably heard that. But really what it comes down to is you just have to know, whenever you look anyone up on LinkedIn, they're going to have a number after their name. It's either going to be a 1, 2, or a 3, a first, a second, or a third. And as you see here on this slide, what that's telling you that's so critical is how many relationships away from you is somebody. If they're a first, that's your friend. That's someone the 2 of you have agreed to connect and be friends on LinkedIn. Second is a friend of a friend, okay, where there's someone in between that knows both of you. And I would argue those are the most valuable contacts, because we already tend to know our friends. What we don't know are the thousands and thousands of people our friends know and might be willing to introduce us to. And then if you go out to third degree, do the math, it's a friend of a friend of a friend, which is a little more distant, but still has some relationship juice in there compared to, let's say, a total stranger. And occasionally you'll see people come up that don't have a number after their name. That means they're beyond 3 degrees. They're way, way out past the chain of relationships and therefore not usually all that valuable. So really that's the premise of LinkedIn is the founders of LinkedIn back in 2004 said people like to do business with people they know and trust. They like to hire vendors, they like to hire employees, they like, all this kind of stuff in business works better when there's referrals and people vouching for each other. So LinkedIn's mission was to allow us to see farther out into our network and not just our close circle of friends, to be able to get out to these other second and third degree connections. And that should be abundantly clear when we get done with tonight. But the first, second, and third is the backbone. Okay. All right. Now, someone already asked this question. Good timing. I mentioned in the last webinar, but I'm going to say it again. LinkedIn, of course, would love you all to go sign up for paid accounts. And for some people, that's the right thing to do. For all these years I've been teaching LinkedIn, I keep telling people like 98% of what you'll probably need to do on LinkedIn is free. Everything I'm going to show you tonight in this class is free, is not a paid feature of the site. So really the short answer to this question is most of you will never need, you see there's 4 accounts on the screen there. The top 2 on the right, sales and hiring, those are for very high volume salespeople and recruiters. So unless you're one of those 2 types of people, it's pretty unlikely you're going to pay the money for the purple and the orange account. Now, a lot of other people that are job hunting tend to gravitate to the green career account, which is the cheapest. And that does give you a few nice benefits about you can see more information on who's looked at your profile. What else does it tell you? It puts a little badge by your name at the top. But honestly, I don't find, and nor have many of my clients found, that paying the $30 a month for the career account, most of them don't see much difference, quite honestly. I've asked them, are you glad you did that? And most of them say, I can't really tell the difference. So, if 30 bucks a month is no big thing to you, you could do it. I just still don't think most people need to do that. The one non-negotiable thing that requires a subscription, as you see on the slide here, is if you really start using LinkedIn heavily and running a lot of searches because you're so darn inspired by what I show you tonight, there is some magic number of searches you're allowed to run as a free user each month before suddenly you try to run another search and you get a warning message that says you've hit the commercial use limit, which means you can't run any more searches until the first of the next month. Now, for whatever reason, they don't tell you how many searches you get. They don't tell you if you're close to that limit or not. You just hit it. You might hit it on the 9th of the month, the 20th of the month, and most of you will never hit it. But if you do run into that commercial use limit where it doesn't let you search anymore that month, the career subscription, the cheap one, doesn't fix that problem. You have to get at least the business subscription, which unlocks unlimited searching. So if that's the main issue compelling you to upgrade and pay, you've got to get at least the $50 a month business subscription or do a free 30-day trial of it, which you can do with any of these accounts. Okay. So just to repeat, I don't think most people need a paid subscription, but once you learn the ropes of LinkedIn, you think you're getting the hang of it. Yeah, you can go read about what each of them do and see if you think it's worth trying it. But again, note that the cheap one, the career one, doesn't solve the I've run out of searches problem. And that's the main one people hit that causes them to upgrade. Okay. Hope that answers your question. I get that question all the time. Okay, next question I get all the time. When it comes to inviting people or accepting connections, is the game as many people as possible? Should you let even strangers connect with you and try to get as many first-degree connections as you can, or keep it fairly limited to just your trusted friends? There are 2 schools of thought on that. I would say 2/3 of experts, I'm one of them, believe that the quality approach and only connecting to people you have some relationship with, you generally trust them or don't have a reason not to trust them, is really the way to go. And that's, again, what the founders envisioned for LinkedIn. The whole point was, if I say I trust Fred and Fred says he trusts Jennifer, I probably can trust Jennifer. Now, there are people, though, who advocate for the quantity approach, basically saying you should invite any stranger, you should accept invitations from any stranger. Your goal should be to get thousands and thousands and thousands of connections. Their argument, which is true, is the more first-degree connections you build, the more second and third-degree ones you can see. It just makes it easier for people to find you, which is true, but at the cost of trust, meaning if you get thousands of connections to strangers and people start asking you for referrals and favors, well, you're probably going to start wondering, am I comfortable introducing this complete stranger to one of my really valuable relationships or not? Or do I just keep ignoring these people and never give back or reciprocate? So the only people I think really should err on the side of quantity are people who are in the networking business. If you're a salesperson, if you're a recruiter, if you're someone whose living is built on building and cultivating relationships, I can understand why you'd be a little more open on letting everyone in. I will say, though, most of us err on the side of quality. So again, it may be someone you met once at a conference. It may be someone you worked with 7 years ago, but at least there's some reason, there's some relationship there. It's not two total strangers. So again, there's not a right answer to this, but if you were wondering that question, I will say again, the majority of LinkedIn teachers tend to err on the side of quality, and that's what I practice myself, okay? Now, how do you build that network, whether you go the quantity route or the quality route? Again, apologies to those a little farther along, but I just felt obligated to quickly mention there are 3 ways, not just one, there are 3 ways to build your network on LinkedIn, okay? So the first one is the most obvious, which is, let me jump to LinkedIn. Now, someone mentioned something in the QA, and I'm sure I'm going to get a flood here, but when I'm now on LinkedIn, can you see now LinkedIn and not the slide? I'm paranoid from our earlier experience. Okay, got some yeses. Hey, all right. So if I go to LinkedIn and I say there's somebody I want to connect with, make up a name here. I want to connect with Robert Lowe, the actor, or whoever, someone I know. So you can always look someone up by name, find them on here, just open their profile, make sure it's the right person. That's not Robert Lowe, the actor, but and if this is the person I was looking for, easy peasy. I hit the connect button and ask them to be my friend. Okay. Now, the one thing I'll mention, though, is this is the only method of connecting to someone that lets you add a personal note. So there's going to be many cases when you probably want to invite someone you haven't seen for a while, and it's going to be important to add some context. Hey, John, not sure if you remember me. We worked together 10 years ago. Or Shelly, I met you at the conference last month. No obligation to connect, but if you're open to it, I really enjoyed our chat and would love to connect up. So I'm a huge fan of adding notes to invitations because it reminds people of who you are and it puts some context. But the only way you can do that is when you open someone's profile and invite them with the connect button. That's when you'll get the add a note option if you need to do that, okay? Now, what are the other 2 options? Okay, if I go back to my slide, you can go to the My Network menu on the top LinkedIn toolbar, as I'm going to show you, and LinkedIn uses a lot of artificial intelligence to show you lots of people it thinks you know. So watch this. If I jump back to LinkedIn, for those who haven't done this ever or in a while, I go to My Network at the top, and I scroll down, and lo and behold, it's taking a second here, it's going to apply some artificial intelligence and say, oh, here's some people we think you know in Seattle. Here's some people who might have gone to school with you. Here's some people who also follow the school you go to. So it's going to bring up all these people, and it's not going to get them all right, but it's going to get a creepy amount of them right. I mean, they've got so much data. So if you see anyone here that, oh, I know that person, you can connect with them. But remember what I just said. If you hit connect here on this screen, you can't add a note. So if it's important to you to add that little message, what you want to do is not hit connect here, but actually open their profile up once LinkedIn helps them find you or helps you find them. Just click on their name to open their profile, then hit connect, and now I can add that important note. So the My Network tab can help you find them. I still open their profile and connect because, again, I always want to add that little extra note. It's not the end of the world if you forget every once in a while. It just misses the chance to have that little touch point with them, okay? And then last but not least, kind of the nuclear option, so to speak, is on that same screen down in the bottom left, the My Network screen, there's an option that says import your contacts. And it's scary because it says, if you trust us with your email address, we will go into your email account, look at everyone you've ever interacted with, and we'll make a list of anyone you've emailed that's on LinkedIn so you can easily go down and invite them all. Now, I totally understand if someone says, whoa, I'm not going to trust a site like this with my password. I've been hurt before, or I just want to have my guard up. I did with mine, and I've had a lot of clients do it simply because there's, of course, a stack of legal disclaimers that they won't sell that data or do anything evil with it. So you have to make your choice on that. But if you're fairly new to LinkedIn, I will say it does speed the process up tremendously, because it will generally find all these people that you've ever emailed and just make it easy for you to just check the boxes and invite a whole bunch of people at once. So like you could build 100 connections overnight. But it doesn't let you add a note, as I keep saying. So if there was anyone you felt you really needed a personal message, you've got to invite that person individually. I wouldn't use this bulk feature, okay? Someone asked if you are connecting with a stranger you haven't met, and which I don't recommend, like I said, but if you were going to do that, you would just have to write a short note that somehow convinces them there's a valid reason you want to connect with them. I mean, why did you pick them out of 600 million people? What's in it for them? Or just what's the context? So, I mean, that's going to vary heavily case by case. Someone also said they find there are many recruiters they know that want to connect with them, but they don't send a note. I'm so glad you said that, Dana, because I would say if you're a job hunter or just a career-minded person, the one exception in Matt's book of guidelines is I would accept most requests from recruiters, because even if you haven't met a recruiter, if they reach out to you, it means there's something in your profile that probably clicked with their practice areas. And it just, it's a good idea to have a lot of recruiters in your network because it helps them bring jobs to you every once in a while. So that might be the one exception I would make. I would still wish them to write a note that explains what is it about you, or you might write, if they invite you and don't say anything, you might accept and then write them a note back, because now they're your friend if you accept it. And just say, hey, thanks so much for the invite. Is there a particular reason you wanted to connect or a job you had in mind? So follow up with them and kind of see, what is it that led them to you? So recruiters, I give a little bit of an extra pass. If there's anything fishy about them, how do I say it? Like if they seem like they're for another country, not that that's bad, but a lot of the spam and stuff, if you're not looking to move overseas, it's much less likely a recruiter from another country is going to be recruiting for jobs in Seattle. So just kind of trust your instincts, see what message they sent. You can, again, always follow up and just say, tell me a little bit more, and see what they say. But if they're consistently cagey and just won't answer your questions or don't seem legitimate, at some point you might disconnect or not accept. You just kind of have to feel it out and see if they'll respond to you and answer some questions, okay? I don't think there's any real way they can hurt you, though. I mean, if you accept it, you can later unaccept it. So it's not like it's a fatal mistake, but just, keep your guard up, okay? All right, let's move on. The next little subsection before we get to the main event is, in a discussion of networking on LinkedIn, I have to carve out a couple minutes to talk about LinkedIn groups. I would estimate less than a third of people on LinkedIn actually belong to any groups. It's not a very well-known feature. In fact, it used to be a very major feature on LinkedIn, and they keep diminishing it over the years. They keep pushing it away, sweeping it under the rug. I keep thinking they're going to get rid of this feature, but they haven't yet. So for those who don't know about groups, what we're talking about here is there's over 100,000 communities that have been started on LinkedIn, which are simply an online community built around a common bond, a common topic. So there's groups of people who went to a certain school. There's groups of people who used to work at Microsoft. There's groups of people who care about sustainability. I mean, literally, you name it, someone's probably formed a group around it. You yourself can form a bunch of groups if you want, and you can join up to 100 of them. Now, almost nobody does that. I would say the average person who knows about groups might join 5, 10, 15, something like that. But as LinkedIn diminishes this feature, or has over time, people don't even understand how to find groups. So let me just show you real quick. If I jump back to LinkedIn, I start over, I hit the little top left button just to blank everything out, start over fresh from the home page. So to find groups, there's two ways to do it. The easiest way is just go in the search box, type any word, let's do university, any word that relates to what you're looking for, like University of Washington. You run the search, and then when the default comes up, the default is going to be people who went to UW. Well, that's not what we're after. We want groups. So just realize that in the More button, if you open that up, there's a groups option. So you just change the More menu to groups, and lo and behold, it says here's 1,599 groups that have something to do with University of Washington. However, as some of you have noticed, Western Washington, some Washington, D.C. schools, some other schools with Washington, apparently it's a very common name, will also mix in here as well. But if you sift through here, you'll find dozens of UW groups that you could potentially join. So if you just click on them, look at them, it'll say request to join. You click it, might be immediate, might take a day for the moderator to let you in, but that's all there is to it. The nice thing is it ranks them loosely by size. So if there's 1,600 groups, after we get past the first couple pages, these are going to be teensy-tiny little groups that it may not be worth belonging to because they've only got 17 people in them. So most people only look at maybe the first 2, 3, 4, 5 pages, okay, of groups. You don't have to, you can keep going, but it does make it a little easier because generally the larger groups are going to be the ones you get more benefit from, okay. You could also do something a lot of people forget to do this. Let's say you were looking up a group for financial people. So I type in the word financial, I get 35,000 groups that relate to finance and financial. So at this point, I might stick in a geography word like Seattle, because I'm looking for chapters or groups more centered on, if you're in Seattle, not all of you may be, but that knocks me down to 45 groups that specifically mention financial and Seattle. So don't forget to put in locations like Puget Sound, Washington State, Northwest. If someone said, I'm really into sustainability, they run that search, there's 7,300 groups, and they might try Puget as just an example. Hey, here's 4 groups that combine those two things. So that's how you would find more localized groups. And you can join, huge ones and local ones, but just a lot of people don't think to do that. Okay, I mentioned there were 2 ways to find groups. The other way is to go back to the My Network tab, which is where we found the people that LinkedIn thought we might know. If you keep going down through all the junk they throw at you, near the bottom, they're also going to do some guesswork on what groups they think you might want to join. You just got to go way, way down on this page, and eventually you'll see, it's way down there, unless they've changed it, but I looked at groups you may be interested in. So if you don't know what you're interested in, LinkedIn will try to tell you. You just got to scroll way down, and then you can click and join some groups and do your thing, okay? Now, what a lot of you are probably wondering is, well, why would I do this? What's the benefit of being in groups? Again, many people are in groups and don't really understand the benefits of them. So on this next slide, I talk about there's 3 key benefits to joining groups. Number 1 is it does boost your search ranking to some arbitrary degree, meaning, as we talked in the last webinar, if someone runs a search for people in your field, your LinkedIn's going to rank you, out of 500 results or whatever, they're going to say, oh, you're going to come up number 137th or whatever, because there's all these different factors that go into LinkedIn deciding how to rank people or order the list. Being in a lot of groups boosts your ranking because LinkedIn decides, if any 2 professionals are fairly equal in talent, someone who's involved in a lot of groups is probably networked more in their industry, so therefore let's boost them up a bit. So we don't know how much that impacts it, but just know that if you join some groups, it does raise your overall findability to some degree, okay? The second thing you can do is groups are basically a private version of LinkedIn's homepage, right? So on LinkedIn's homepage, you can post articles, share things, and ask questions. It's sort of like a Facebook-y bulletin board. Well, with a group, you can go in and just do that to the fellow group members. So it's a great place to ask questions. Like if you're in a group about project management, hey, I'm trying to decide between this certification and this certification. Does anyone have any advice on that? Or, you name it. Hey, I'm looking to learn some new software skills to help out my data analysis career. What's hot right now? Or does anyone have an advice for someone trying to break into the biotechnology field? So, you know, it's hard to say how much of a response you'll get, but you absolutely can go into a group. Now, let me show you on the screen here where the groups you're in are hiding, which again, they move this off the main page. So if I go, you have to go under the work menu. Once you've joined some groups, they're hiding under the work, got to move this, groups submenu. So if I click that, you will see that the person I'm logged in as belongs to, I just had them join 2 groups, digital video editing and the Career Horizons community. So let's say I was a digital video editor. If I click on that group name, it's going to take me into that private page, right? And again, just like the homepage of LinkedIn, this is where I could start a conversation and ask questions or share articles, stuff like that. And again, some groups are more active than others. Okay, the third benefit of groups before we move on is, a lot of people don't know this, but you can email directly up to 15 members of groups you're in without paying LinkedIn a dime. Normally on LinkedIn, if you want to reach out to a stranger and send them an email, send them a note, you have to pay for that. Those are called in-mail credits. But you can do it with 15 group members for free, total. So if I was this person and I was trying to get into the digital video editing field and I joined this group, Digital Video Editing, what I could do is go up to the member number at the top, or see all, click on see all. That'll show me everyone I'm in the group with. And I could go down looking for appropriate hiring managers or people I might want to connect with. So just for argument's sake, here's a chief executive officer at Moksha Productions. So if I said, well, that's the kind of person I would either value their opinion or maybe want to work for, I could just send Ian a message by hitting message. Again, wouldn't have to pay a dime and wouldn't have to go through somebody else. So it's really the only free person-to-person contact method other than an invitation. But an invitation, a lot of people don't accept because they don't know you. So just be aware, if you're in some groups, check out their directories, go through them, and see if you can maybe find 10 or 15 people a month that are relevant to your career goals, and just reach out to them with an appropriate note, okay? All right, I had a few questions come in. Somebody asked, what is the risk of accepting sort of invitations from people you don't know? There's really not a big risk, because anything they're going to ask you for, a favor or request, you can just turn them down. I suppose 1 in a million times accepting, if someone was really, I'm going to make you all paranoid, if someone was trying to steal your identity or something, even then I'm not sure how that would help them that much, but accepting them would give them access to your email. I guess that's something, because your friends can see your email address. So I guess there's a slight chance someone could use it for some kind of hacking kind of thing. I just haven't heard many stories of that, quite frankly. So there's really not much risk, although I still don't recommend it, just because I'm kind of against the idea of connecting to people you don't know. But if it's a student or someone you know in passing or something, I think it's fine. And if someone ever abuses the privilege, you can always unconnect with them, right? Just instantly. Someone asked, they're living in India and they only get requests and recommendations of people to India to connect. How do I connect with people overseas from Seattle? My guess is, and we might have to talk offline about that, is, you know, every country or most countries have a version of LinkedIn. So if you're not on the main LinkedIn, just linkedin.com, I suppose it'd be less likely US people would be finding you. If you're on the Indian version, not the US version. Alternatively, it could simply just be the distance, that if it was like for hiring, perhaps a lot of Seattleites are not checking out India to hire folks. But beyond that, we'd have to talk more about. The first thing I would check is make sure you're on the main LinkedIn.com US version, not the Indian version, or whatever country one might be in. And then the 15 free messages is total amongst all your groups. It's not per group. So each month, 15 amongst however many groups you're in, you sort of get 15 darts you can throw to reach out to hiring managers. Okay? Good questions. Okay, so that's what groups are all about. Now we're on to the main event. Okay, so buckle your seatbelts. For those of you who are not math geeks, I am not. That was my worst subject. To really understand the power of LinkedIn and what this site is capable of, you have to learn a few search syntax rules that are called Boolean syntax, a very scary sounding name for some rules that most people find are not that hard to figure out and learn. It's named after a mathematician. Most of the internet, almost any site you can search, like Google or LinkedIn or others, some form of this syntax is going to work, and it lets you run more precise, complex searches than most people know how to do. And I'm going to show you some cases of why that's so incredibly valuable when job hunting. Okay, so some of you will probably have to refer to the recording to really master these rules and study them. So I'm going to go quick, but the first thing is when you're searching, if you put a capital "and" or a capital "or" between any two words, it does what it sounds like. If I'm looking for people that do both finance and accounting, I need them to do both, I put a capital "and" between those words. If I don't care which of those words, either finance or accounting, I put an "or." But the syntax words have to be fully capitalized, every letter, because that's what tells the site that's a syntax word, not that we're looking for the word "and," right? So your main search terms, as you're going to see, don't have to be capitalized, but the syntax words, every letter has to be capitalized. The next Boolean rule, anytime you're searching on a phrase that's more than a single word, you have to put quotation marks around it or it's not going to run right, because quotation marks trap those two or more words and say these go together. So if you look up project management, you got to put quotes around them. Business development, got to put quotes around them. Human resources, you get the idea. So that'll become old hat once you practice a while. You'll just, every time you type a phrase more than a single word, you'll throw quotes around it. You can use a capital "not" to kick things out. Let's say a whole bunch of jobs come up at Microsoft and you're not interested in working at Microsoft. You could put in the company box "not Microsoft." Or if you're an architect who builds buildings but don't want to get software architecture jobs, you could say "not software architect" or "not cloud architect" or something. But you got to be sure when you're kicking a word out that that word doesn't mean other things that might be acceptable. So for example, I'll have some people just put in the main search box "not Microsoft," but a lot of jobs say, oh, we want you to know Microsoft Office or Microsoft Word, and you just kicked all those jobs out. So whenever you use a "not" to get rid of something, make sure whatever you're excluding is something that, you know, there's no other meaning to it. There's no other, anyway, it's easier to show you in a second than try to explain it, although I suspect most of you are following just fine. The hardest rule to explain is parentheses. For math people, it goes back to algebra, order of operation, and logically constructing the search. For dummies like me who don't get math, the simple version is anytime you're mixing ands, ors, and nots, you put ors that go together in parentheses. So if you're saying, I want someone who does finance who's either in Seattle or Bellevue, well, Seattle or Bellevue go together. They're the two cities. You know, those are the two similar terms. So you have to put parentheses around those, around any ors, as I'll show you. And that's what, otherwise, again, the system gets confused on how to evaluate that search. And that's always, for years, I've tried to teach people Boolean, and I think it's far easier to show you than to tell you, although you will have this slide that kind of explains it. So I'm going to move on here to some examples. I also make a note here, LinkedIn, as of a couple years ago, stopped allowing any Boolean searches with more than 5 terms in them, more than 5 ands, ors, or nots. So sometimes you'll run a search and get all excited, Seattle or Bellevue or Issaquah or Redmond or Kirkland or Woodinville, and the search bombs. And you'll go, oh, I forgot. You can only have up to 5 syntax terms in a search. For some reason, for many, many years, that wasn't a limitation, but now it is. I even forget sometimes because I remember the way it used to be, the good old days. Okay. So I know that's pretty new to some of you, but now what we're going to do, and kind of the heart and soul of this class, is I'm going to show you 5 ways you can use these rules of Boolean to search for very appropriate things in a job hunt. Okay. And hopefully this will make these rules really stick here. Okay. Starting with the simplest example, and like I said, a lot of detail on these slides, so you're going to have access to the downloadable PDF or the recording if you need it. Heck, some of you might even pull your cell phone out and take a picture of the screen if you don't want to wait. But like I said, I detailed everything very carefully so that after the fact, you know, you'd have access to it. So it's actually easier than it probably looks. If I'm looking, the first common issue job hunters run into is there's a company they really want to work for, but they know without an inside referral or someone vouching for them, their odds aren't very good. It might even be a company that's advertising. You see an advertisement at the Gates Foundation, and you send your resume in, but then the moment you do that, you jump on LinkedIn and frantically see, is there someone I know who can help me get a foot in the door over there? Okay, so let me show you how you do this, which is again, all documented here on the slide. So if I go back to LinkedIn here, I'm going to start over by hitting the top left button to kind of blank everything out. So the first thing you're going to see me do on almost every search, and it is so simple, but almost no one knows that you're supposed to do this, is you don't run anything in the main search box. I would encourage you to always run a blank search by just putting your cursor in the box, hitting the magnifying glass, run a totally blank search to start. Because what that does is it brings up a submenu with other menus. And on the far right, there's an option called All Filters. And what that does is it brings up a page, if you click it, of every possible way you can search the data. So in other words, this All Filters screen is the advanced search screen. It's the one that gives you the most control over what you're looking for. If you only search with a word in the top box, that's a very basic search that just doesn't give you all the control over the results. So almost every search you're going to see me do tonight, just have it. Blank search, all filters. Blank search, all filters. It's just the better way to go. Okay. So for this simple situation, what you would do, let's say you wanted to work for Tableau Software here in Seattle. So I would just go in. Now, right off the bat, here's an example. If I search Tableau Software in the main box, it's going to bring up people who have ever worked there, currently or in the past. But my All Filters menu gives me the option. Do I want people who used to work at Tableau Software? Or do I want people, which is more likely the case, who currently work there and probably can help me more? So right off the bat in the All Filters menu, I can put the name of the company in the current companies box, okay? And for this very simple search, maybe that's all I'm going to do to start. So I just put in Tableau Software, current company, and then I run the search. So I hit the apply button, I run it, and this says there are 5,200 people in LinkedIn who work for Tableau Software. It's a pretty big company currently, okay? So we have an abundance of riches here. Holy cow, there's 5,200. Now, I should have mentioned this earlier. If you think we're getting these great results because we're logged in as Matt, and Matt he's the trainer and he's got thousands of connections and all that, that's not the truth. What we're actually logged into, as people might remember from last week, is we're logged into a second account I've created for a made-up person called Joe Jobseeker as a teaching tool. And this fellow only has about 150 first-degree connections. I've intentionally limited his connections so that the results I'm going to show you are much more similar to what you're going to get versus, like I said, someone who's been at this for 10 years. So even Joe Jobseeker, who doesn't have many friends on here, he still gets 5,200 people to come up. So at this point, if it was a tiny company with 7 people, I would just go through the results and see who comes up. But if I've got this many, I've got to narrow this down, right? Because I'm looking for who is the person or couple people I'm going to try to approach to get that little extra help. So with this big number, you have options. You can go back to the All Filters menu, okay? And for example, I might say location. I might say, oh, Tableau has offices in lots of different cities. So I'm targeting the Seattle office. So I might go back and force it to be the Seattle area. So I'm going to apply that. So if I do that, it knocks it in half. That got me down to 2,300, okay? But that's still a big number. Let's now go up, and I'm going to cheat. I could go into All Filters, but this menu's up here as well. In most cases, when you're looking for a referral, you want to limit it to only your first and second degree connections, because remember, these are the warm connections. These are the ones where you either know somebody, that's first degree, or a friend of a friend, that's second degree. So I'm going to limit these results to only up to second and get rid of the thirds. So if I do that, it knocks me way down to 168, a much more workable number. So if I was a normal job hunter, I would now go down and think about this. Every single one of these people showing up, I know at least one person, or Joe Jobseeker knows at least one person who knows them. So I would go down and I would go, well, what do I do for oh, here's a recruiter. Why don't I reach out to a recruiter? Hey, right under their name, it says, I actually know 1, 2, 3 people who know Lauren Beatty. How would I ever have figured out who in my vast network knows someone at Tableau? So I would just pick someone there. If I was a finance person, I might notice here's a corporate controller, and I know Kylie Robinson knows Matt Nelson. I don't know how. Might be his cousin, might be his neighbor, might be an old colleague. It's none of my business. But the magic of LinkedIn is it says someone I know and trust knows the right kind of person over at Tableau Software. So you can search that way. I could go back to all filters at the top. I could also go down and go to the title box, and I could say, I'm a salesperson. Find me anyone at Tableau that has the word sales in their title. Apply that filter, knocks it way down to 23. But it just makes my life so much easier because it says here are 23 friends of friends in sales at the company I want to work with in Seattle. So the last step is once you identify the person you think is best to approach, just based on the relationship and what they do, you don't go to the person directly that you're trying to reach. You do what the system was designed for. You click on the name of your friend, and you can always send a message to your friend. So if I put my cursor on Vibhu Ranjan, I can send my friend Vibhu a message. So I just click message and just ask for the favor. Hi, Vibhu, haven't talked to you in ages. Hope you're doing okay. Quick favor to ask, no obligation, but how well do you know Laura Wheeler over at Tableau Software? Do you know her well enough to make a quick introduction? I had a few quick questions I would love to ask her or get her take on or something like that. So you're just asking your friend for the courtesy of an introduction. They might grant it. There may be some reason they don't. They don't remember who that person is or asked them for a favor last week. But that's generally the whole point of this system is you say to your friend, hey, you know someone I'm trying to reach. Would you mind introducing me? And then your friend will facilitate that. They'll give you their phone number. They'll email them. They'll find the appropriate way to say, sure, here's the way I'd like you to reach out to them. Okay. So we're going to go fast because we have a lot to cover, but I just wanted to say again, the first most common thing you should be using LinkedIn for as a job hunter is anytime a company hits your radar screen, see if you can track down a friend or a friend of friend who works for that company and see if you can get someone to introduce you there. So you can at least ask, like, do you have any tips on the hiring process? Is there a referral system there? Do you know anything about this job or the history of it? Just some fairly obvious questions to see if they'll lend a hand. And they may or they may not, but it's definitely worth a shot. If you see people you want to meet and you can't find any connection, any friend to friend, really at that point, you're out of luck. You're not out of luck, but you'd either have to send them an invitation, even though, as I said, most people won't accept an invite from a stranger, or you can pay money to become a premium subscriber and you get a few of what are called InMail credits each month that you can write to someone directly, just send them a note. It's called an InMail, but you don't get many for the money. So I'm not a big fan of paying for them, but again, the main purpose is trying to find someone in common. If it's a third degree or beyond, I'd probably go for like a recruiter because they're probably going to be more receptive than a hiring manager or someone like that, just because they deal with this stuff a lot more. But okay. And thanks to Marion who mentioned why additional Boolean terms used to be favored and aren't now, is just, it takes a lot more computational resources. So that doesn't surprise me, but someone confirmed what I suspected. Okay, so that's fairly easy, but I bet even that approach a lot of you weren't doing. Let's take it to the next level. What if, like a lot of people, there weren't a bunch of companies you had your eye on, but here's the question I would ask you as a career coach. What would the title of your next boss likely be? If you're a project manager, who would you be working for? A director of project management, a PMO director? If you're an accountant, you'd probably work for a controller or a director of accounting, right? So one of the amazing uses of Boolean, okay, and again, since we have it on the screen and I've got some examples here, I think it's going to be more useful if I demonstrate this live, knowing you're going to have these slides coming to you. But just take a quick glance down here and you can see these examples I've got. This is the kind of thing like very few people are doing that really gets me excited, because to me, these are the power searches. Okay, so let me demonstrate one. So if I go back to my fictitious person, start again, yet again from scratch. And let's say I am let's pick something. I'm a marketing grad who's just getting a wonderful new marketing certification from UW-PCE and is looking for a new job in marketing. So the first question, who would hire marketing people? What would the boss's title be? Probably marketing manager, marketing director, marketing VP, right? Something like that. Usually you're just adding manager, director, VP to whatever you do for a living. So same sequence I showed you before. You start with a totally blank search. You hit the all filters button because we want to get to all of our search options. Let's assume we're searching Seattle. Some of you may want to search other places. You can add as many locations as you want. Okay, but where does the marketing director thing come in? You have to know that if you scroll down and scroll down, there's a very useful box down here called title, which searches people by their job title. Very, very useful. So here is where the Boolean kicks in. I say, oh, I want a job in marketing. Well, what's another name for marketing? Yeah, I would take a job in advertising too. Heck, I'd even take a job in branding. So the first thing you've got to ask is, are there other names for the type of job or role you're looking for? So in this, we could add even more, but for this case, I'll just put 3 in there: marketing, advertising, or branding. Notice I put capital ORs between all those words. I'm saying I don't, this word or this other word's fine. Okay, but remember, I don't want anyone who does marketing. I want leaders, I want executives, I want managers. So then I move on, and I know it's hard to see in here with the limited space, but I put a capital and I say, oh, and I want a manager, and I'd also settle for director, and what the heck, I'd also take a VP. So I've really got 2 sets of 3 clues each. I've got the marketing words, and I've got the level of the person words connected by a capital and. Remember the last rule of Boolean, the tricky one? Parentheses go around groups of ORs that belong together. So this would not work right if I ran it. I've got to go back, put a left parenthesis in front of the first bucket of clues, and then put a right parenthesis after branding to keep those 3 clues separate. Then my and kicks in, and then I put another parenthesis set around my marketing terms. And then lastly, I check to make sure I didn't exceed my 5 syntax words limit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is as long as I can make it. I could always run other searches, but for one search, this is as long as I can make it. So what do we have here? All I did is I said Seattle area and marketing managers. I'm going to run that search. And that says, even in my Joe job seeker guy who doesn't have a lot of friends, even this guy gets 17,000 hits on that. Holy cow. There's that many marketing managers running around Seattle. So again, this is exactly the kind of people we're trying to find. So if I get that big a number, I just go, oh, well, wow, if there's that many, I'm going to keep refining things down further. What if I then went up and again, limited it to friends and friends of friends, because I'm always trying to get to the warmest contacts. That's the point. So if I limit it to that and rerun it, that knocks it down to 1,500. Still a big number, but we're getting somewhere. We've got VPs of marketing at tech companies, Starbucks, Zonar Systems. They make, I forget, trucking equipment. Anyway, a lot of companies I haven't heard. So all these, look at all their titles. These are all high-level marketing people. So if there's still 1,500, I may go all the way back to all filters, go down to the industry box. And if I have some preferences, let's say you want to work in technology, I might pick a bunch of computer codes. Okay, so I put in computer. Now, this is a little tricky. Whenever you look at the industry menu on this page, it only shows 5 industries. There's actually 148 industry codes in LinkedIn. I wish they gave you a link here to see them all, but you just have to kind of either guess obvious words like internet. Oh yeah, that's in there. Online. Oh yeah, that's in there. Or you can just Google LinkedIn industry codes and print out a sheet of them all and tape it to your monitor. I wish they had an easier way to find them. I can type in technology, okay? So anyway, I pick, in this case, let me pick 5 computer codes if I'd prefer to do marketing in the computer industry, pick those industries, reapply it, and that knocks me down to 480. So again, making progress. So at some point, well, I guess I'll do it now for lack of a better thing, since that's still a lot of results and we're adding a lot of filters here, but this is as good a place as any to show you the final one. If I still have almost 500 people, just for argument, I'm going to go all the way back to filters. Now I'm going to go down to the company box, which searches people by company. And this will be probably the one example I use a not. And I'll say, yeah, I don't really want to work for a huge company. So what if I take out not Microsoft or Amazon or Google? Or you could say, it's not that I don't want to work there, but I've already got people that are helping me there or something like that. But let's just say, these are such big companies. What if we took those 3 of them out? And that knocks us down to almost half, 252. So at this point, I would just go down the list. I'd look at the people that come up, where they work, and I'd look at my friends who know them, and I'd start asking my friends for those introductions. Hey, Kathy, would you introduce me to Eric? Hey, that's funny, it's connected through me. Dan, would you introduce me to Kim? But think about that. I'm finding introductions to marketing managers at companies I didn't even know existed in Seattle. And that's really important, because there's 100,000 or more companies in Seattle, and most people only know 20. So this is going to really help you find a ton of companies you just weren't even aware were out there. Okay. So that's the second method, if you can kind of customize that to your needs. Just replace finance with sales or marketing or whatever you do for a living. But that's a very common thing, is to look for managers or above in your department and start asking for some introductions to them. Okay. All right, so I'm watching our time. I've still got plenty of stuff I want to cover in my slides, so I'm going to throw an audible. Isn't that what they call it in football? I'm going to keep going through the slides, because I think most of you have been very respectful about questions, which I love. Start asking me questions if there's questions about this stuff. We'll certainly keep like 15 minutes at the end, but I think it's going to be more helpful. Plus, we had that little technical issue to start. More helpful for me to finish these next couple slides and to just go immediately into Q&A, okay? So on we go. The third search out of 5, I think, is going to interest a lot of you. How do we find recruiters on LinkedIn? Specifically, how do we find external recruiters? Which, as some of you may know, some may not, there's kind of 2 main kinds of recruiters. There's the external ones, which are the staffing agencies, the headhunters, the places where it's a third-party vendor that connects 2 people together. Most people think of recruiters, that's what they're thinking of. There's also, what we're going to look at next, is internal recruiters, which are, of course, recruiters on staff at the employer that you'd be working for. Microsoft, Boeing, Expedia have recruiters on staff. They're called internal recruiters because, they're working internally at that company. But there's 2 different ways to find them, which is why I have a slide for each of them. Okay? And I'll be monitoring these questions, don't worry, and I'll respond to them. So for external recruiters, I think you get the drill. I have this slide that explains it all, but just to bring it to life, I'm going to jump back to LinkedIn, start over, okay? I'm going to run my good old blank search. I'm going to hit all filters so that I can get to everything, all my choices. Just for argument's sake, I'll put in Seattle again as the location. You don't have to, but you could put any cities you want to target. Okay, and here's where it gets interesting. I go down to industry, and one of the industry codes is staffing and recruiting. And that's what most external recruiters choose. They don't have to, they could pick some other industry, but the vast majority of staffing companies and external recruiting firms, they pick that because that's the industry they identify with, right? So watch what happens if I just run that search, staffing and recruiting in Seattle. That brings up a lot of people. It brings up about 10,000 recruiters running around Seattle. It's a pretty common field. So how do we narrow that search down to the recruiters that might work in your particular area, accounting, project management, or whatever? Okay, there's 2 ways to do it. Not to complicate it, but it's just how you do it. The simplest way would just go, if there's 10,000 recruiters, and hoping most of them actually write in their profile, these are the kinds of people I tend to place in jobs. So I could go in and say project managers, for example. Now that's 2 words. So remember, quotes go around it, little Boolean. So if I put in at the top box, because what this top box is now going to do, it's not going to start a new search. It's going to apply what I put up there against my 10,000 results. It's going to create a subset of my main results. So if I put project managers and run that, it knocks my 10,000 down to 186. Now, they won't all be a perfect fit, because some will have been project managers themselves once upon a time. Well, that's a little bit sad. Sorry we ran into that. But if I keep going down, there should be some that say, let's see if we can find one here. So here is a recruiting manager at Prime Team Partners, okay? So if I open up Michael Gruenwald's profile to read more about him, and I go down, chances are he says somewhere, I saw it in the little blurb, specializing in IT placements, data engineers, blah, 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 and project managers. So he mentioned in his profile, he places project managers. So therefore, he might be a recruiter. If you're a non-tech project manager, he may not be your person. But if I got to this point and I was a tech-related project manager, I would just, like I said, hit connect, because recruiters are the one audience I would approach with an invitation, even if I don't know them. So I probably would say connect. I would add a note and I would say, hey, Michael, I'm a certified project manager looking for a new gig and just would love to chat more about your firm and the kind of roles you handle or something like that. Okay. Now, what if I back up a step? Instead of project managers, what if I said accountants? Okay, now this brings up 223 people that are either accountants who identify with the recruiting industry for some reason, or you'll find some of them, if I go down, senior accountant at Orion Industries, let's see, some of these are recruiting firms. You'd have to open their profiles. But last but not least, one other thing you can do, because this is a little sloppy if you just search by keyword, for some really common industries, I can go to all filters and I can actually search for my target words in the title. So I could say, like, accounting, give me a recruiter who actually says the word accounting in their title. Like, I'm an accounting recruiter or a sales recruiter or a technology recruiter. And that'll get you down to a very specific set. Accounting, let's see. Oh, these are people in the industry. Yeah, they're still in recruiting firms. They're just doing the accounting for those firms. I guess Seattle doesn't have a lot of pure accounting recruiters. But anyway, so you can try that approach as well. Now, a couple questions came in. If you have an this is going back a little bit. If someone introduces you to a hiring manager, what's the best approach to that person? So if you've got a friend who introduces you to a manager, a couple things I would say: be incredibly polite. Don't act entitled to their help. Give them an out, no obligation, no worries if you're busy, and make it quick. They don't have time, or they probably won't respond if you're asking. I mean, it sounds sad, but in the old days, you could ask people to lunch or coffee. Everyone's so busy. I think it's safer to just say something like, hey, Fred, I'm a mutual friend of Charlie's. I'm glad he could put us in touch. I'm really interested in working for Expedia and just had a few quick questions I couldn't find answered on your company's career page. Would you have 5 minutes I could give you a call and bounce these things off you? That's pretty casual and quick, and a lot of people respond. And then you ask them a couple questions like, any tips on the hiring process? Is the company in hiring mode right now? Do you know anything about this job? Is there a recruiter within Expedia I should try to get a hold of? Those kinds of things. Just a couple simple questions, and leave it to them to go farther. If they want to talk your ear off for half an hour, which sometimes happens, great. They're helpful people. But you want to approach them very politely and just ask for a couple minutes to ask those kind of questions. Generally, that produces the best response in my experience. Someone else, is there a way to locate headhunters, which is a bit of a dated term. It's not used by many headhunters, but that's actually exactly what we're doing. Most of the people coming up in these searches are headhunters. We could actually run a search and go into the all filters button and literally look for the title headhunter. That's possible. So if I go into all filters again and go down to title and say headhunter, you'll just find very few people come up if I limit it to just Seattle again. Let's see how many there are. So only 18 people in all of Seattle actually call themselves headhunter by title. So that, good thought, it just doesn't get you very far. Okay. So that's one way to find a lot of these external recruiters. If you get too many cases, well, actually, this will come up on the next slide anyway. So to just recap that, you want to pick the staffing and recruiting industry, you want to pick your target geography, and then you want to put a word in the top box or a word in the title box that relates to the work you do, so you can try to find recruiters talking about your field that might. And I'll just tell you right now, unfortunately, people who are generalists don't usually have much luck with recruiters. You have to be in a pretty specific field, like, accounting, finance, administrative, sales. A jack of all trades. Recruiters aren't able to do much with those. But if you're in a more, specific field, you're going to get a little farther. Okay, on to number 4 slide. Other side of the coin is now finding internal recruiters on staff at companies like Microsoft, Boeing, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so as my slide's going to tell you later, if you need to refer to it, it's similar, but you got to tweak a couple things to shift it to find internal recruiters. And I should mention, this isn't an absolute thing. You're going to find some external recruiters in this set and a few internal ones in the last set. But see, here's the thing. Everyone can only pick one industry. They can't pick more than one. So what we're going to do now, as you see here in the third bullet, is now when I look for people, I'm not going to look under the staffing industry. I'm going to look under the company's industry, aerospace, high tech, biotech. And that's where most internal recruiters identify, because they're picking the industry of the company they work for, not the external. It's hard to explain, but so you'll never get the same people in these two searches. They're two different sets that mostly break down internal versus external, but it's not a perfect correlation. Okay, so what do we do here? We start with a blank search, as you're sick of me saying. We hit the all filters button on the right. We do all the same things. We set location to Seattle, hypothetically. But now what we would do is we'd say, oh, let's say I want to work in healthcare, just to do something different. So I start typing words that relate to healthcare, hospital and healthcare. I could pick health, wellness, and fitness. A lot of times that's like gyms and stuff like that. I'll pick it anyway. It's not as much clinical healthcare. I'll type in medical. Oh, look, there's a couple of those. I'll pick some medical codes. So I'm looking for internal recruiters that are in kind of the health and medical field. Okay, so I'm just going to pick 4 of those industry codes that really relate to that. But now what you have to do different is if I just ran that search, it's going to find me a million people who work in medical field, nurses, doctors, administrators, everything, because I haven't said anything to narrow it down to recruiters, right? I'm just saying anyone in medical. So now what you do on this search is you go down to title, and we've got to actually put in the box, I'm looking for people in medical who have the title recruiter or recruiting. This is all on the slide. Or talent, because a lot of them now call themselves talent acquisition people. You generally just have to say talent, because that's what 99% of them are. I might put in, if I'm also going to add HR or human resources, because sometimes they do the recruiting in companies. So I'll add those in. You notice human resources is 2 words, so I had to stick my quotes around that last word. So I've got Seattle, I've got medical companies, and I've got a titles Boolean search that insists the people who come up are recruiters. I run it and I get a lot of people, 1,400 people, but check this out. Look at what these people do. Human Resources Director at Era Living, that's senior living. It's probably because of the health wellness. I've got Chief HR Officer, Overlake Hospital. I've got a lot of them is just not telling me their company. I'd have to open up their profile, but VP of HR, Evergreen Health. On and on and on, a lot of HR people. Trust me, buried in here are plenty of recruiters as well. If I went back and took out the HR thing, it would be all recruiters. But the thing is, you're going to get hundreds and hundreds of HR people and recruiters in medical in Seattle. And again, I get kind of excited because I see people trying so hard to find jobs, but they might only go talk to 2 recruiters or 3, or I've only heard about 5 of them, when with a 5-second search, they can find hundreds. And again, because these are recruiters, it's the one exception where I would use the connect button to say connect, add a note, and just pitch them on why you're interested in the medical field or what you'd like to talk to them about. If you happen to see one of them as second degree, a friend of a friend, yeah, I could go through my friend Robin to get to Angela if I'd rather use one of my relationships. But with recruiters, again, you can kind of just go directly to them with a connect request as well. Okay. So those, by using the external internal search, you could change the industries for whatever you do. But the key thing on the internal search, as my slide shows, is getting the Boolean right here, recruiter or recruiting or talent or HR, human resources, because that's what's going to laser it right into recruiters. Okay. A couple questions. How do you indicate you're available for remote work? It's a great question. There is an option, I believe, we talked about it last week, on the profile page, under your name at the top, there's a section called Open to Work. And it'll say, let recruiters know you're looking, or let everyone know you're looking for jobs. And when you edit that, there's an option that says remote, or you can pick cities. So go look under the Open to Work setting and look for that remote option. That's the most common way that people do that. Sometimes when you search for a title, it shows people, and showing your name, it just says LinkedIn member. Yeah, so as I said right at the beginning, if people come up and it doesn't show their name, it means they're beyond 3 degrees of you. You can't see them. So they're so far out in your network, LinkedIn won't share that. I can't even remember, if you're a paid user, it might show you a little more data, but I just kind of treat it, if they're beyond 3 degrees, they're too far out. There's not much you can do with them. That's why it says LinkedIn member. If you're looking for internships, absolutely the exact same thing. I'm sorry, you're right. So internships, yeah, there's no difference. Who would you intern with? Would it be a manager of marketing, a manager of sales? Everything I just showed you would apply the same way. Your ask would be different. You would be just saying, I'm looking for an internship, not a job. Yeah, so it's really identical. And thank you, Meredith, for correcting me. I think most people would have found it, but just about the remote work setting, especially for those not here last week. If I click on the me to view profile, so I'm going to edit my profile. Okay, so what I was talking about, open to job opportunities, this is the section where you signal to people on LinkedIn, I'm looking for work. So if I edit that with the blue pencil, I think I called it location, I'm sorry. It's under types, as Meredith mentioned. So job types, you see this here down at the bottom, it says remote. So that's where you would select, yes, I'm open to remote work. Thanks for that catch, Meredith. Okay. All right. Last but not least, of my 5 key things I really wanted to get across, this one is one of my favorites because I literally have not met somebody yet who knows you can do this on LinkedIn. What the 5th and final search that I was going to show you tonight is how you find or build a list of target companies. How do you find new employers to target you hadn't thought of, which is a very important part in job hunting, because like I said earlier, if I just pick on Seattle, Seattle's got 140,000 companies in it. And the biggest issue job hunters is everyone is chasing the big 20 everybody knows. Microsoft, Amazon, Starbucks, Gates Foundation, instead of researching, hey, I'm kind of interested in medical. Who are the 100 other companies I could be talking to other than the 10 I've heard of? That is such a useful thing in job hunting. I can't stress it enough. So LinkedIn has been trying to get rid of this feature for years, and I don't have time to explain it all, but they used to allow a much more sophisticated form of this, and they've just about killed it. But there's one last gasp. They're letting you do it. And 3 months from now, it wouldn't surprise me if suddenly this trick no longer works. For some reason, I think what they're trying to do is save the ability to find companies, build company lists for their super high expensive paid users. So they don't want free users to be able to do this. But it's still possible. So what you do here, as you can read on the slide, is you just got to figure out 2 things. What is a word in the description of the company you're looking for? So what's an industry term of the kind of company you're looking for? And then you put a capital and the city or location after it you're trying to find. Now, those of you racing ahead going, well, why don't I put Seattle and Bellevue or Kirkland and use all this Boolean Matt taught us? It doesn't work. They've intentionally not allowed even multiple words beyond what you're seeing here. And that's of like 2 months ago. They used to. So let me just demonstrate this last thing because it's pretty useful. Let's say I was a graduate or someone getting us, or any of you looking for a job. And let's just for argument's say, I'm really into the cloud. I want to work with a company that does cloud services or applications. So most of us in tech could probably name 3 or 4 companies, Microsoft, Amazon, a couple others. But watch what happens when I go to the top search box. I type the word I'm looking for, cloud. I type a capital and I type the city I'm targeting, Seattle. Nothing else. If you put anything else, it's not going to work. I run that search, okay? And then I have to know that hiding under the More menu is an option to shift it to companies, because the default isn't companies, it's people and jobs. So I run my search, I pick companies, and lo and behold, it says, here's 354 companies in Seattle talking about the cloud. Okay, so like I said, a moment ago, you were going after Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. Now you can go down and go, who's Flexport, who's Fuse, who's Tencent America, who's Quantum, and find all these companies you weren't aware of that might need someone who does what you do. Now, I know a lot of you are looking and going, but wait a minute, a bunch of these are based in California and stuff. And here's why, because on here, on the listing, it's just going to show the city the company's based in. So if I go to Tencent America and open it up, okay, It's based in California, but my search insisted that somewhere in the about description of the company, it says the word Seattle. So if I go into the about box, it's going to say Seattle in here somewhere. Okay, so you see we have offices in New York, Los Angeles, and Seattle. So we just found a company not well known that has an office in Seattle. Most of your competitors probably don't even know. So don't be discouraged that, at first glance, a lot of them aren't going to be based here. But if you open up the company and read the about section, it'll tell you why did the word Seattle show up. But my point is, I want you to go down this list. And yeah, there's going to be a few false positives. There's going to be, the local newspaper has a business section that talks about, there's going to be, 20% that are not what you're after. But there's going to be so many other ones. Whoop, I lost it. Let's try another one. If I did, I don't know, what if I said sports and Seattle? Let's try that, see what that does. So I run it again, and then I've got to change it, or it's still on company. So this found 435 companies dealing with sports in Seattle. How many of you could have named more than a dozen? The Mariners, the Seahawks. So I love this hidden feature that lets you find so many new companies to go after. And, you might go after them looking for a referral there. You might just open up their company page, which will have a link to their website. And better yet, on the far right, there's a link that automatically will take you to everyone who works at that company. So it's like instant networking. So you don't have to go run a separate search for that. Anyway, wish I had more time to really do it justice, but just as long as you walk away with what I'm telling you, that LinkedIn has this free hidden feature for finding lists of companies, I think it could be a really, really useful tool that some of you use. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. For those who do download the recording, I had one more slide of just if somehow amazingly we had time, I was going to throw you 3 other little tips. I don't have time, so I'm just going to trust for those interested, the PDF file, the recording, you can go read these. I think they're fairly self-explanatory, but I had thrown 3 in little extra credit things. But time's up, so we can't get to them.
Matt, I think we have a few questions. You might be able to take.
Okay. All right, well, let me get through the questions, and if somehow we've got
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Okay. And I just want to say again, especially compared to last week, I was overloaded. You guys have been so great about the questions, and they're, all very good questions. Wish we had all night. Okay, so in the order I'm seeing them here, what is my top tip for breaking into a new career if you have little or no experience? It's tough. It's certainly not nearly as easy as if you have a lot of experience. I will say it is almost utterly dependent on networking. So getting involved in groups back before COVID, going to associations, but most importantly, finding friends of friends, because you're going to be not selling your experience as much as your trust. So you can't be shy. You have to get out and say, just as an example, let's say I wanted to become a chiropractor. I don't know. I would run a search, like the very first search example, actually the second search example I showed you, and I would say, who in Seattle is a chiropractor that's 2nd degree? And let's say 170 people came up, and I would start asking my friends that knew these chiropractors, would you introduce me? Might even be better to pick ones not in Seattle because they won't be as threatened by you cutting in on their turf. But you just go out and start asking them questions. Hey, I'd love if I could reimburse you or just can't thank you enough. Can you share some advice on how someone should break into this field? What are the keys? What training do I need to get? But I'll just say it is not going to be done usually sending resumes to ads. It's going to take some interpersonal connection where somebody vouches for you. And that's how a lot of not all, but a lot of the cases you get hired. How do you find jobs that require an MBA was the next question. That's really easy. It's not really what we were going to talk about tonight, but just go to the jobs tab on LinkedIn and type the word MBA. Bingo. Any job that asks for an MBA will come up. You could do the same thing on Indeed.com or any other job site. Someone else said they have 300 connections on LinkedIn, but not able to chat or connect to all of them. How do I stay connected? If we're talking connections like you invited them and they accepted or vice versa, which is what a 1st degree connection is, I don't know why you wouldn't be able to chat with them. I mean, anyone you're connected to, 1st degree, you should be able to message them. I don't even think you can turn that off necessarily. I'd have to look. So really it comes down to how do you stay connected to them is just the good old fashioned way. Going through the list, who do I know that I haven't talked to in a while? Oh, Betty, I was just thinking of you the other day. Or Martha, can you do me this little favor? But you just work the list, go down through the people you know and are connected with on your My Network tab, and just try to think of a reason to reach out to them and say hello. And I don't even think there's anything wrong with just saying hello. I was thinking about you the other day. They may think you've got some hidden agenda or something, but there's no shortcut. I mean, it's a bigger topic, but it's, you've got to kind of know who your friends and allies are, and through some mechanism, try to keep them fresh and don't let them forget about you. It's a hard lesson a lot of job hunters go through. LinkedIn can be a great part of that, but it doesn't all have to be done on LinkedIn. It can be coffees, can be calls, can be lots of other ways. Jamie, maybe you can answer that next one. Where's the link to download the recording? I think you and PU said it was going to be on the same site you RSVP'd for this session. So if
yes, that is correct. It will be posted back, and the last week's recording is there. So the deck and the recording are being posted back to the event site.
Okay.
I'm trying to pull the link out. Just give me a second.
Okay, great.
Go ahead.
Someone asked, how do you let someone know you're not American would need a visa? There's really no way to do it other than put it in your profile under like the about section would require visa sponsorship or something like that. Or don't say it, and the moment any employer recruiter talks to you or you talk to them, you bring it up at the appropriate time. But there's not a setting or anything that says needs a visa or not American. You would just, if that's a really important thing for you to communicate, I'd put it in the about section and just prominently where they can see it. Okay. Someone else asked about the brand new feature, the Open to Work frame, it's called. The hashtag Open to Work frame, which puts a little green thing around here. I'll even, if I can remember the name, let's see if I can find it. So they just added this. So they're in the same place we went and look on the edit profile for the the remote work person who asked under your name and the edit profile. You're going to see something, hope she doesn't mind, but I'm going to show her off here. So this is someone I was talking with the other day. You see her photo, it's got the little green Open to Work. That's a brand new feature where LinkedIn is visually signaling that someone's saying, hey, I'm looking for a job. I think it's kind of cool. I think it's kind of an elegant way to do that. It's totally optional, but how you would do that, not everyone is eligible for that yet. They're still rolling it out, and I've seen some people who can do it and some who can't quite yet. So it might just take a little time, but you would just go into your edit profile screen. I'm not sure if this guy is eligible for this. You'd go to Open to Job Opportunities, edit it, and I don't see it on here. So I don't think he is eligible yet. I have seen some people who are, but this is the place you would monitor, every couple days and just see when it does show up, you'll see there's a thing that says, do you want to add this Open to Work frame to your profile? And if you're in a non-confidential job search, then yes, you'd want to do that. You can also look that one up in the help menu. If you need more explanation of it, just look up hashtag Open to Work. I know there's a help article in the help menu because I read it the other day. If you select remote as the type of work, is that what they're going to think you're only interested in? No, because you can pick as many of those things, Kimberly, as you want. So you could pick remote, full-time, part-time. So you don't have to just say one. So yeah, if remote is just one of your options, pick all the rest of the options that apply. Next question, just like the visa one, if you have a work permit or U.S. citizen status or want to say I'm available to work and I don't need a visa, that's always a tough one. Like, should you even have to say that, or should that be the assumption? I guess if you found, given perhaps a name that's not a very conventional U.S. name or something, that if you feel you really need to communicate your work status or citizenship, you again could just put it in the about section and say something like fully authorized to work, green card, or H-1 or whatever the visa is. I would put it in the about section. Okay. Immigrant with English as a second language, how do you make this weakness into a strength? Great question. When trying to network and meet people. It's certainly not easy, but since we have a couple minutes barely to spare, that's another great example of networking on LinkedIn. Like I said, we don't have nearly the time to go through every wonderful example, but let me just make up and pretend someone was from Brazil. I'm from Brazil. I'm new to Seattle. I don't know many people here. I'm trying to get connected. What I would go look for is fellow Brazilians or fellow people who either speak Portuguese or Brazilian or have come from Brazil. How do we do that? Run a blank search, hit all filters, put location Seattle. Now we could put other things like industry or title if we wanted to narrow it down further. But if all I cared about was they're in Seattle and they speak Portuguese or are Brazilian, I would just run that search and then go to my top box and use some Boolean. Brazil or, I'm going to spell it wrong, I'm sure. It doesn't look right. Something like that maybe. So Brazil or Portuguese, if I run that, this says there's 8,800 people in Seattle that mention Brazil or Portuguese on their profile. If that number's huge, I'm going to narrow it down to friends and friends of friends. Maybe one of my friends knows somebody from Brazil. So that gets me down to 500. So the person who asked that question, I'm not sure what country you're from, but I will promise you, if you do a search like that with your country and language, you're going to be shocked at how many people you can find that have come from that country. And I would reach out making that the common bond, you know, because I would hope they would have some empathy or some nostalgia. Oh, we're both from Ireland or wherever it is. So that's just another example of where you can use LinkedIn to find people you have something in common with. Very, very powerful. Really? Oh, I guessed right. Okay, well, it's my lucky day. All right, not much more time. Someone asked, being a graduate student waiting to graduate in about a year and a half, when's a good time to start networking to connect with people relevant to the field? You probably know my answer to that, Pravita. It's never too soon. I think in general, any student in a main program should start networking minimum like 6 months to a year before they graduate, so they can start laying the groundwork. And those managers, if they start thinking, oh, we might need to hire somebody next fall or get an intern for next January, we don't want to show up in January when they've already made that decision. So I understand if you're so busy, you can't do a lot of that right now, but I would do a little bit of it. And as your graduation gets closer, do more, get out to more people, build more connections, get involved in more groups. But it's absolutely essential, I think, is you want to have, you know, dozens or hundreds of people aware, hey, I'm going to be available on this date, and hopefully one or more of them having a job waiting for you. And it's that networking thing. I keep talking about that. I'm introverted. I'm really introverted. So I've had to learn the hard way, the power of trusting people and asking for help versus just throwing your resume out there into cyberspace, which can be a tough way to win. So much on LinkedIn, it's all about trust and building relationships and giving back. If people ask you for help, I hope you reciprocate and you pay back into the bank, because that's another great benefit of LinkedIn, is it allows you to help your friends, and people remember that. Okay, unbelievable. Think we've got most of those questions answered. Anyone needs to sign off, you're more than welcome, and I appreciate the positive remarks. Someone asked the remote setting, Kimberly. I can go through that again in just a second. It should be under the... So I think, let me just do that last demonstration, and then PU, if you think we're good, I think we can wrap up.
Yeah, I think we're good. Let's do the demo. Okay.
So just one more time for those who missed it. I'm going to start over on LinkedIn, blank everything out. So if you want to change, so I go over to the Me menu. Actually, how I usually do it, as I talked last week, just click your name on the left side of the home screen, because that instantly takes you to your edit profile screen. Either way works, the Me menu or that. So you go in here. So what you'd have to do, Kimberly, is make sure there's going to be this open to job opportunities option with should have a little pencil by it. If you open that up, you have three choices. I am job hunting openly, and I don't care if every LinkedIn member sees I'm looking for a job. Pick that. If I'm confidential, I only pick recruiters. I don't want the average person on LinkedIn to see I'm looking, just recruiters. Or I could pick the third option, I'm no longer open, which is I don't want anyone to see I'm looking or I'm not looking. So what we're talking about is if you pick all LinkedIn, if you pick one of these top two, LinkedIn members or only recruiters, there should be, if you scroll down, this job types menu. If not, there's a bug or something, but there should be under the titles and locations, job types, and at the very bottom of that is that remote option we were talking about. Okay, so that's where that is. If it's not coming up, I honestly don't know what the issue could be, because it's always been there when I've tried. Okay, and lastly, someone asked, should you attach your resume to LinkedIn? I would say no. I think your profile is your resume. You can if you're applying through the jobs page on LinkedIn, they let you upload a resume. I would do it there, but I wouldn't attach my resume to my profile if that's what you were asking. I just think no one's looking for it there, and it just clashes with your actual profile, if that answers your question. Okay. Well, my friends, I think we're at time. Thank you so much. Happy linking. I hope you all got at least a few new tips out of it. And if you're real diehards, again, the recording has those couple little extra ones you might find interesting we just didn't quite get to. But thanks again to you, Dub, for hosting this. And I'll see some of you probably next week when we're talking about resume tips and construction.
Thank you, Matt. This was a great presentation. I think we really hit our stride here.
After the first 10 seconds.
No,
it was all uphill from there.
No, it was all great. And I'm really happy that we still had a good showing, and looking forward to the next one whose title I'm forgetting.
Something about resumes. I forget.
Awesome. All right.
Okay.
Resumes.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Take care.